Well, the release of Chris Hani's killer, then Janusz Waluś, on parole has been met, as you were just hearing, with outrage, even from the Young Communist League. They're holding a conference at the moment in Ekurhuleni. The Communist Party had called for his parole to be suspended pending the outcome of a rescission application. Govan Whittles is live for us in Boksburg and joins us now. Govan, so a bit of the reaction then now. What do we know about Waluś's condition, especially after the stabbing?
Well, we know he's well enough to have been released this morning. He was stabbed in the upper body, in the chest, and he had been recovering in the correctional centre's hospital. This morning he was released. The 10 days that the Constitutional Court ordered he should be released by had lapsed last week, and the Correctional Services Department in Justice Ministry and Janusz Waluś's lawyers agreed together that he should remain in hospital and a decision would be taken on whether to release him or not once he was well enough. Today, the Justice Minister announcing that he's already out of the Correctional Centre, making no mention of the rescission application by the South African Communist Party, even as the SACP believes there is sufficient grounds for them to launch this application, and they believe that there's a prospect of success here. We spoke to the Young Communist League's National Secretary a little bit earlier. They say that they believe that the Constitutional Court had acted despite that rescission application, that they were disappointed. They say they'll pin their hopes on the inquest that they've called for. They do think that if that inquest is agreed to by the NPA and that it eventually happens, they'll be able to get further testimony from Janusz Waluś in such an inquest and get some answers. They also insist that Waluś, as well as Clive Darby Lewis, who had supplied the gun to Janusz Waluś, who committed that murder, remain unrepentant, and say that Waluś even now is unrepentant. And they've raised questions on whether or not Waluś had agreed to serve out the remainder of his parole here in South Africa, since his lawyer had earlier indicated that they would have preferred him to be deported. Also raised concern that the Polish embassy had indicated that they wouldn't be able to enforce some of the conditions of his parole. But the reaction keeps coming in. Let's get another brief reaction now from the Gauteng coordinator for the ANC Youth League, Stanley Letswalo. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Letswalo. So we're speaking to young people about the release of Janusz Waluś. What does the ANC Youth League in Gauteng have to say about this?
Look, in line with what we had initially mentioned in our statement, that we are not happy with how this process has been approached, I think we still maintain the same view. As the ANC Youth League, we are utterly dismayed, flabbergasted and taken aback by the fact that even our own institutions do not inspire hope. Because I think we all know that this thing has opened, old wounds, and we expected that the least that our state institutions could have done was to actually look at amicable solutions. But at the rate in which things are going, I don't believe that no one is paying attention to what we really feel, especially for the Hani family as well as the Communist Party at large. But be that as it may, I think that the YCL is actually correct that we do need to explore the inquest avenue and see what possible solutions can come out of that. So we do have confidence that eventually someone will give us an ear.
This decision taken by an ANC government, even as the ANC says that it didn't agree with the decision of the Constitutional Court to order the release of Chris Hani. Do you believe the government's hands were tied and it was forced to release him here? What's your view on the fact that it's actually the ANC government that released him?
Look, it is a complex issue that we must not shy away from that fact. However, for the fact that we know where we come from, especially with our history, and this is an icon that we're talking about. This is not just anybody. We'd expect better from our leaders nationally, and especially for those who have a clear understanding of our historical background. This is not something that we could just have as a by-the-way issue. It's something that we really need to pay serious attention and detail. I mean, up to today, we still haven't gotten answers. The Youth League came out very clear that before Waluś is actually released, he needs to tell us who sent him to kill Comrade Chris Hani.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you. Stanley Letwalo, he's the Gauteng coordinator for the ANC Youth League. And this issue likely to have implications for the alliance as well. And just this evening, the ANC's national chairperson, Gwede Mantashe, expected to deliver a political lecture to the Ekurhuleni ANC. Of course, Chris Hani, having lived in Ekurhuleni, was murdered in Ekurhuleni. And he'll be talking about the state of the alliance and what the alliance is doing and what the different attitudes are towards each other as they go to conference in just over a week's time. It's back to you.
Govan, thank you for that update from Boksburg.